Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we are discussing the effect of each and every Primarch upon humanity. No real need for a spoiler warning today, but just keep in mind I am briefly going to mention something from the novel The Lost and the Damned. So let's waste no time and just jump straight in. Now, during the Siege of Terror novel The Lost and the Damned, there's a particular moment where Jagatai Khan leads the White Scars on a sally across the wall, and during those events, he begins to get overwhelmed by the newly corrupted Death Guard, requiring Sanguinius to lead the rest of the Imperial forces out to save his brother. And it was there that we got a fantastic glimpse of the immediate effect the sheer presence of Jagatai Khan has upon the mortals of mankind. Raised above them on a pile of corpses was a giant in white, another Primarch, the Warhawk himself. The Khan was utterly different to his brother Sanguinius, yet fundamentally the same. Like the Great Angel, he was forged of high science and lost arts. Like Sanguinius, he inspired dread and awe in Katsuhiro in equal measure. But where Sanguinius recalled higher, more refined creatures than men, and so inspired humanity to excel, the Khan was a being of caged lightning. He was a storm's fury poured into the shape of a man, where calmness and a near holy beauty radiated from the angel. The Warhawk was a restless wind that filled Katsuhiro with the need to rush forwards, to charge through the enemy, to ride them down and never stop moving, to doubt all, to know all, to laugh and live fully through the best of times and the worst of times, and then at the last, to greet death with a defiant smile. And I absolutely loved this moment, because so often in the lore we get the Astartes view of a Primarch, yet rarely a mortal's, and even then virtually always in a briefing room or some such location. And it'll be a reference to their immense bulk or their aura or presence. But it's never upon the field of battle. And never do we receive the instinctual gut emotion the Primarchs evoke from the mortals upon the battlefield. The essence of the nature that the Emperor forged into them. Like with Jagatai here, immediately filling Katsuhiro with the urge to rush forward, to charge through the enemy. The spirit and essence that makes the Kargan, the storm. And we briefly got Sanguinius too, that desire to excel above and beyond, to be more than you are. And so, receiving that, I thought it would be a fun conversation to have a chat on the effect all the Primarchs would evoke within mankind, the true mortals of humanity, the instant battlefield instincts, that brief, fleeting emotion. And of course we can't know for sure, and there's no right or wrong answers here. It's just a bit of fun, so drop your own thoughts in the comments below as always. But again, just remember, we're focusing on that instinctual effect upon the mortals of humanity. That essence upon the battlefield. And well, with that out the way, let's roll in Legion order and begin with the first, Lion L. Johnson. Now, for L. Johnson, we're focusing on the Primarch he was back in the days of the Great Crusade. Not the current incarnation within the 40k universe, with his more ethereal, psychic-esque nature. As we've seen, that gives off a very different aura. And for me, L. Johnson's effect would surely echo that knightly king of old, the King Arthur-esque nature his character originates from. The urge to bow down and kneel before him, to pledge your oath and follow him unto battle, to prosecute your enemies with no mercy, to put them to the sword for daring to have the temerity to oppose you, knowing that you are the lord of the battlefield and no other can claim that right. Yeah, definitely something evoking that old school, knightly, Lord of Old vibe for me. Now, moving on to the next Primarch, we have Fulgrim. For me, laying eyes on Fulgrim would absolutely have similarities to Sanguinius in a way. That immediate inspiration and desire to prove yourself, to excel above and beyond. However, where Sanguinius might have that twinge and element of rage and bloodlust, for me, Fulgrim would possibly fill you with that arrogance of superiority. The notion that the enemy can't match your skill, your pursuit of perfection, and that you will prove it to them, and to everybody else upon the battlefield too. Moving on next, we have Perturabo. Now, laying eyes on Perturabo on the battlefield, for me, would undoubtedly give you that instant sensation of weathering any storm. That feeling that you can withstand anything the enemy can throw at you, and that you will obliterate them in return. A brutal, uncompromising mindset. That you are as immovable as a mountain. That you are not only tougher than your enemy, but smarter too. And you've already planned their doom. They're just too foolish to realise it. Now, moving on, Jaghatai of course we have already discussed, so that leads us on to the Wolf King, Leman Russ. Now, Russ of course is that Viking-esque lust for adventure. To lay eyes on him would surely fill you with that desire to write your saga, to prove your worth to the Allfather in glorious battle, to seek out the biggest enemy and drive your blade through its neck, feeling the urge of a feral beast within to howl to the sky as you do so, urging you onwards, to give in and unleash that primal savagery, and to rejoice in the glory and freedom of battle. Next up, Rogal Dawn. The Praetorian for me would give that instant sensation of unshakable duty, that you will hold and not break, no matter the cost. That you are the fortification upon which the enemy will break. That there is no weakness that they can exploit. That you will do your duty, and you will bring victory for the Emperor and the Imperium. That there is no other possibility. Now, Conrad. Conrad is a very interesting one. To feel the presence of Conrad would be to feel terror and inspiration in equal measure to me. To know that it is fear incarnate that descends upon the enemy, and that it is only through their unjust actions that this fate is rewarded. That the enemy will not just meet their death, but that they will be crying and repenting as they do so. That they will suffer for their crimes. That you will make them plead for forgiveness before the end. And that you will smile as you do so. Up next, Sanguinius was told in that little Jaghatai passage that we discussed earlier, of recalling images higher than humanity, and in that way inspiring them to excel. But I would also argue, as we've seen by mortals being caught up in the Blood Angel's fury, that there'd definitely be an element of feeling that from the angel too. That desire of bloodlust and savagery bubbling beneath within. feeling it curdling within you. Now moving on to another interesting one for me, Ferrus Manus. As for all his son's reliance on the machine, Ferrus himself was very much against that, and a very temperamental personality. So for me, to see Ferrus at war would be to be filled with the sensation of an unstoppable assault, of smashing your enemy and grinding them beneath your boot, of an anger firing like a furnace, and a grinding unstoppable advance of war. That you won't just defeat your enemy, you will demolish them. That your resolve is unbreakable as steel. And next we have Angron. Now Angron's tricky as we never saw him without the butcher's nails within his head, and so we can't really be sure what his instinctive impression and aura would have been without them. However, with them, you'd have to assume it would be an overwhelming rage, a notion of mindless bloodlust of fury, a desire to charge into the enemy and hack them to pieces, to not rest until every one of those foolish enough to oppose you lays eviscerated upon the ground, to prove that you are the strongest and all the others weak. On to Roboute Guilliman. Well, Guilliman's roots are obviously inspired by those emperors of ancient Rome, of the Senate, and so to see Guilliman would be to see and feel that regal authority, to be inspired to be the best you can be, to do your duty with honour, to know that together you will win, that you will march as one, that it is by your sword that civilization flourishes, and that it is by your courage that the light will always cast back the dark. On to Mortarion. Now, Mortarion for me is most likely the trickiest one of all. As for him, I think you'd get elements of Perturabo, elements of Ferrus, and even elements of Angron. According to the Emperor, Mortarion was created to be that rebel element, and so to lay eyes on him in battle would be to feel the defiance of a galaxy, an urge to overthrow tyrants and to break their empires, to wade through the fire of war and annihilate the enemy, to crush the foe utterly and completely, to be disgusted by their dark practices, and to put the witch to the torch. Now, Magnus the Red. To see Magnus would be to feel the enlightenment of knowledge, to know that it is upon the side of civilization that you fight, and the enlightenment of its future. That you are not only defending humanity, you are defending history, and all that is yet to come. That in you, the hope for mankind itself exists, and that only by your efforts can that potential be achieved. And next, on to Horus Lupercal. To see Horus for me would be to be inspired to greatness, to push yourself to the limit, to see humanity personified in one, and to see brotherhood instilled. You would have the unshakable urge to drive forward with your brothers and comrades in arms, and to have a pride in what you are, not what you need to be. To embrace your friend and scorn your enemy, to be decisive, and to go for the throat. To feel the presence of Lupercal would be to have a complete and utter confidence that it is mankind that owns the stars, and that it is to mankind that you belong. Next up we have Lorgar. Now, Lorgar inescapably looked the most like the Emperor. He reflected his golden light, and indeed was made to be his herald. So to see Lorgar would be to feel on the cusp of a golden age, to feel the glory of that moment, to know that it is for the Emperor, for the Imperium in which you fight, and it is for this moment that the very galaxy draws breath. To know that your actions here will be remembered for eternity, and that there is no obstacle too vast, no foe too fierce, to stop you from ushering in mankind's destiny. That you will be the light that illuminates the darkness. Up next we have Vulcan. Vulcan for me would have you feeling like the ultimate protector, the guardian of the weak. You are here not for the glory of war, but to fight for those who can't fight for themselves. You will defend humanity from whatever foe it faces, because it is right to do so. That those who seek to prey on the weak will feel your fury, and that it is by your fury that you will cast them back into the dark. That you will not rest until all of mankind is safe and free, and that peace is reigning across the galaxy. On to the Raven Lord Corax. Surely seeing him would fill you with the desire to strike from the shadows hard and fast, to unleash your fury upon the enemy before fading away to strike again, to feel a great injustice on those who would oppress others, and to claim your vengeance, to make your foe your prey, and to watch the fear on their face as you ambush them, that you embrace the shadow to bring the light. And finally we have Alfarius. Now this is a tricky one. For me, I'd probably have to say seeing Alfarius upon the battlefield would want to make you deceive your enemy, fool them into making mistakes, to be confident that you know your foe far better than he knows himself, and that your victory has already been planned, that you are but one of many, that it's not important that you deliver the final blow, only that it comes, that the mind is as equally as important as the body, and to outsmart the enemy is to win the war before it's even begun. And so that's it. That's the full Primarch roster. The instinctual gut instinct that the Primarchs would evoke upon the ordinary mortals of mankind upon the battlefield. In my opinion, some are definitely easier to envisage than others, and there was definitely a few I struggled with, but I'd be interested to know what you guys think. Your opinions. The ones you agree with and the ones you disagree. The reaction you think the Primarchs would evoke from humanity. A huge thank you to all my subscribers. Your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.